Hi, good afternoon to Mr. Ken Teh Kian Lang. We are from Group 1 who are going to present for auditing presentation today. Before I start my presentation, let me introduce my team members. We have Faiza binti Abdulaziz, which is myself, Miss Duratun Nabila binti Abdul Rahman, and last but not least, Mr. Sivaneswari.
Hi, and good morning to Mr. Teh Kian Lang, and my name is Sivaneswari from UFF Group 1. I would like to start my part, which is clarify the role of auditors in corporate governance. Corporate governance relies heavily on auditing to maintain accountability, reliability, and openness in business. In order to give an impartial and unbiased review of a company's financial health and regulatory compliance, it functions as a methodical process of looking through and analyzing financial records, activities, and internal controls. The importance of auditing in corporate governance and its role in preserving the general integrity of organizations will be discussed in these articles. Let's see our role of auditors and impact of the corporate governance. Role of auditors is ensure accurate financial reporting, and impact is stabilizes investor trust and market reputation, followed by mitigation of fraud and financial malpractices is impact for boost financial health and sustainability, and also monitors the effectiveness of internal control system. Impact by promotes operational efficiency. The second part is the importance of corporate governance. Corporate governance is vital of maintaining the integrity and ethical standards of an organization. It establishes a framework that guides decision making, accountability, and transparency. Good corporate governance practice promote investor confidence, protects stakeholders' interest, and contribute to the long-term success of the business. Auditing acts as a safeguard by verifying and validating the accuracy and reliability of financial information. Understanding auditing. Auditing involves the systematic examination and assessment of a company's financial records, transactions, and operations. It is conducted by a qualified professionals known as auditors who are independent of the organization being audited. The primary purpose of auditing is to provide an unbiased opinion on the fairness and accuracy of the financial statements. It ensures that the financial information presented to stakeholders is reliable and compliant with applicable regulations and accounting standards. Let's see the objective of auditing. There are several goals for auditing in corporate governance. Among there is verifying the accuracy and reliability of financial statements, assessing the effectiveness of internal controls, risk management system, detecting and preventing fraud, error, and irregularities, ensuring compliance with legal and regulatory requirements, providing assurance to stakeholders regarding the organization's financial health and performance. Let's go to our last part, the benefit of auditing in corporate governance. Auditing plays a crucial role in ensuring the integrity and credibility of financial information, thus benefiting organizations in several ways, such as enhancing financial reporting, which is auditing improves the accuracy and reliability of financial statements, providing stakeholder with a clear, transparent view of a company's financial health. It enhance the credibility of financial reporting and fosters trust among investors, creditors, and other stakeholders. Followed by detecting fraud and error. Auditors have the experience to identify potential fraud, error, and irregularities within an organization. Through rigorous examining and testing, auditors can uncover fraudulent activities, helping financial loss and reputational damage. Assessing internal controls, which is auditing, evaluates the effectiveness of internal controls and risk management system. By identifying weakness or deficiencies, auditors provide recommendations and strengthening internal controls, minimizing risk and enhancing operational efficiency. And last of the part is safeguarding stakeholders' interest, which is auditing ensures that the interests of stakeholders such as shareholders, employees, and customers are protected. It provides assurance that the company is operating ethically, adhering to legal and regulatory requirements, and acting in the best interests of its stakeholders. That's all from my part, and I will pass it to the next person. Thank you.
Our group has decided to choose Bernie Madoff accounting scandal to present for today. For this accounting scandal, we are going deeper to know about Bernie Madoff's background, Ponzi scheme, and also his aftermath. Bernie Madoff was born on 29 April 1938. He was the investor and chair in Nasdaq in early 1990s. He is responsible for the largest Ponzi scheme. Bernie Madoff instrumented and executed the biggest Ponzi scheme in history. Madoff Securities hedge funds has affected 37,000 people in 136 different countries. His Ponzi scheme started as early as 1980s through the wealth management branch. He cheated investors out at least $65 billion. That's a very huge amount. He promised low risk, consistent returns to investors. He made up trading information investors and printed false statements. So, let us understand what is actually a Ponzi scheme. Ponzi scheme promises investors high returns but with minimal risk. There is no actual investment of the investor's fund. The investment fund generates new capital to pay all investors their returns. So, it relies on constant flow of new capital. Without new investment, a Ponzi scheme will collapse. So, eventually, in 2008, global financial crisis happened. So, the market was declining. Many investors were trying to withdraw their investment. So this is the point that Bernie couldn't keep up and told his sons, Mark and Andrew Madoff, what he had been doing, who then turned him into the FBI. He pled guilty to 11 felony counts of money laundering, perjury, false filing with SEC, and fraud. He was sentenced to 150 years in prison for stealing over $65 billion. Eventually, he died on 14 April 2021. Hi, let us go through about Malaysian Code on Corporate Governance MGCC. So, the Malaysian Code on Corporate Governance MGCC was introduced back in 2000 and has been a significant tool for corporate governance reform and has influenced corporate governance practices of companies positively. So MCCG reflects global principles and internationally recognized practices for corporate governance which are above and beyond minimum required by statute, regulations and those prescribed by Bursa Malaysia. So why corporate governance matters? This is because corporate governance provides framework of control mechanism that support the company in achieving its goals while preventing unwanted conflicts. So let us go through MCCG principles. We have three, which the first one is board and leadership effectiveness, and the second one is effective audit and risk management, and the third one is integrity in corporate reporting and meaningful relationship with stakeholders. Without further delay, let us audit Bernard Madoff Investment Securities LLC or BLMIS for compliance with the corporate governance checklist. For my part, I'm going to audit on the first principle, which is board leadership and effectiveness. First, board responsibility. Number 1, best practice. The board should set the company's strategic aims, ensure that the necessary resources are in place for the company to meet its objective, and review management performance. The board should set the company's values and standards and ensure that its obligation to its shareholders and other stakeholders are understood and met. So, what are the findings? We find out that there were inadequate resource allocation and monitoring, and also there was ineffective review of management performance. So, the recommendations are to strengthen the board independence and oversight, and enhance resource allocation and monitoring, and besides that, to implement effective performance review. Number 2, best practice. A chairman of the board who is responsible for instilling good corporate governance practices, leadership, and effectiveness of the board is appointed. Finding there was absence of a truly independent chairman, deficient governance practices, and ineffectiveness of the board. And the recommendation is to appoint an independent chairman, enhance corporate governance practices, strengthen board leadership effectiveness, and conduct regular board evaluations. Number 3, the position of chairman and CEO are held by different individuals. So, our finding, the position of chairman and CEO were not held by the different individual. So, Bernie Madoff himself served as both the chairman and CEO of Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities LLC. So, the recommendation is to make sure there is stronger corporate governance practice, such as separation of these two key roles to ensure better oversight and prevent similar occurrence in the future. Number 4, best practice. The board is supported by a suitably qualified and competent company secretary to provide sound governance advice, ensure adherence to rules and procedures, and advocate adoption of corporate governance best practices. We find out that there was absence or ineffectiveness of a company secretary. The recommendation is to appoint a qualified and competent company secretary. Number 5, best practice. Directors receive meeting materials which are complete, accurate, within a reasonable period prior to the meeting. Upon conclusion of the meeting, the minutes are circulated in timely manner. We found out that there was incomplete and inaccurate meeting materials and delays in providing meeting materials. So our recommendation is to provide complete and accurate meeting material and must be punctual in providing meeting materials, timeliness issues with meetings minutes. Best practice number 6. The board has a board charter which periodically reviewed and published on the company website. The board charter clearly identifies the respective roles and responsibilities of the board and issues and decisions reserved for the board. Finding is we found there was absence of a published board charter and there was unclear governance framework. So for recommendation, we recommend to develop and publish a board charter. So this is to ensure clarity in governance structure. Best practice number 7. The board established a code of conduct and ethics for the company and together with management implements its policies and procedures. So our finding, we found there was absence of a formal code of conduct and ethics and there is no established code. So our recommendation for this firm is to create a comprehensive code of conduct and ethics that outlines the ethical principle and standards for all employees, management, and directors. Best practice number 8. The board establishes, review, and together with management implements policies, procedures on whistleblowing. So we found out there was lack of formal whistleblowing policies and procedures, and BLMIS does not have a formal whistleblowing policy in place. So this absence indicates a significant gap in the company's governance and risk management framework. So we recommend to establish whistleblowing policy. Best practice number 9. At least half of the board comprises independent directors. For large companies, the board comprises a majority independent directors. Findings: there was lack of independent directors. So the recommendation is to appoint independent directors, and they should be selected based on their expertise, integrity, and ability to provide unbiased oversight. Best practice number 10. The tenure of an independent director does not exceed cumulative term limit of 9 years. Upon completion of the 9 years, an independent director may continue to serve on the board as a non-independent director. So our finding, there was excessive tenure at BLMIS. So this prolonged tenure can lead to closer relationship with management and potential of conflict of interest. So our recommendation is to implement a formal policy to limit the tenure of independent director to a cumulative term of 9 years. Best practice number 11. The board has a policy which limits the tenure of its independent directors to 9 years. So our finding, BLMS has complied. And the recommendation is also already complied. Next, best practice number 12. Appointment of board and senior management are based on objective criteria, merit, and due regard for diversity in skill, experience, age, and cultural background and gender. Our finding, there was lack of clear criteria for appointments. So BLMIS does not have clearly defined objective and criteria for the appointment board members and senior management. So the recommendation is to develop an objective criteria for the appointment of board members. So these criteria should focus on qualification, experience, track record, and the alignment with the company's strategic objectives. Board composition number 13. The board discloses in its annual report the company's policies on gender diversity, its targets, and measures to meet those targets. For large company, the board must have at least 30% women directors. Findings: there were absence of annual report disclosure. BLMIS does not disclose its policies on gender diversity, target, or measures to meet those targets in its annual report. So the recommendation is to establish and disclose gender diversity policies. Best practice number 14. In identifying candidates for appointment of directors, the board does not solely rely on recommending from existing board members, management, or major shareholder. So our findings, there were over-reliance on the internal recommendation, and we recommend to diversify candidate sourcing methods and establish selection criteria and qualification. Best practice number 15. The nominating company is chaired by an independent director or the senior independent director. And our findings, it comply with the best practice. Best practice number 16, the board should undertake a formal objective annual evaluation to determine the effectiveness of the board, its committees, and each individual director. For large companies, the board engage independent expert periodically to facilitate objective and candid board evaluation. So our finding that there was absence of formal evaluation process and lack of disclosure. So our recommendation is to implement a formal annual evaluation process. Best practice number 17, the board has in place policies and procedures to determine the remuneration of directors and senior management, which takes into account of demands, complexities, and performance of the company, as well as skills and experience required. The policies procedures are periodically reviewed and made available on the company's website. So for the findings, there were lack of established remuneration policies and procedures, absence of structured policies, and there were ad hoc decisions. So our recommendation is to develop and implement structured remuneration policies and procedures, provide comprehensive policies framework, and develop documentation and approval. Best practice number 18. The board has a remuneration committee to implement its policies and procedures on remuneration by reviewing and recommending matters relating to the remuneration of board and senior management. So our findings, we found that there was absence of a remuneration committee and lack of formal oversight. Our recommendation is to establish a remuneration committee, formation and composition, and clear mandate, to define a clear mandate for the remuneration committee to oversee and implement remuneration policies and procedures. Best practice number 19. There is detailed disclosure on name basis for the remuneration individual directors. The remuneration breakdown of individual directors includes fees, salary, bonus, benefits in kind, and other emoluments. We found out that there was lack of transparency in director remuneration. There was inadequate disclosure and also aggregated information. Our recommendation is to adopt detailed remuneration disclosure policies by name basic disclosure and also comprehensive breakdown to ensure that all the remuneration breakdown covers all components and provide clear and complete picture to each director. Best practice number 20. The board discloses on a name basis the top 5 senior management remuneration component, including salary, bonus, benefit in kind, and other emoluments in bands of 50,000 ringgit. So for the findings, there were lack of detailed disclosure, and this lack of transparency is a significant governance issue because this will prevent stakeholders from understanding the compensation and structure and its alignment with the company's performance. So for the recommendation, we suggest to put name disclosure and remuneration band to disclose the remuneration in bands of 50,000 ringgit to provide clear understanding of the compensation range. And the last one, best practice number 21. Companies are encouraged to fully disclose the detailed remuneration to each member of senior management on a name basis. So our findings, we find out that there was non-disclosure remuneration, which BLMIS does not fully disclose the detail of each member's senior management. So this lacking of specificity needed to understand individual compensation packages. Our recommendation is to make a detailed reporting, implement a policy to fully disclose the detailed remuneration to each senior management. So this disclosure should include base salary, bonuses, stock options, long-term incentive, and any other forms compensation. So that's all from my part. Now I shall pass to my teammates, Miss Duratun. Thank you.
Hi and good morning to Seteh Kiang Lang. My name is Duratun Nabila from UFF, and I will proceed with my part, which is the corporate governance number 4 for effective audit and risk management. First of all, I will explain about audit committee in the Burney Meadow firm to check if they comply with the corporate governance checklist or not. For the best practice number 22, they are comply with the corporate governance checklist. This is because the chairman of the audit committee in Burney Meadow firm is not the chairman of the board. The best practice number 23, we did not find any evidence of the audit committee has a policies that require a formal key audit partners to ensure the independence of the audit process, such as cooling off the period for audit partners before joining the audit committee. And therefore, the recommendation, they should implement a cooling off period policy to prevent conflict of interest and ensure the independence of the audit committee by the first one, establish a formal policy that require a cooling off period of at least 2 years. And then number 2, communicate this policy clearly to all stakeholders, including the board of directors, management, and external auditors. And the last one is number 3, always monitor compliance with this policy and review it periodically. For the best practice number 24, they don't have policy and procedures, where the firm use a small obscure auditing firm, Frayling or Horowitz, which did not have the ability and independence to conduct a thorough audit, and the auditors had conflict of interest that affected their interests. The recommendation, we recommend implement a policy for assessing the sustainability, objectivity, and independent external auditors by develop a formal policy to evaluate the external auditors' qualification and independence. For the best practice number 25, we did not find any evidence that the firm has a functional audit committee, they let alone one composed entirely of independent directors. The recommendation, they should perform prompt review of regulatory requirements and industry best practice, and then recruit and appoint new independent director who have relevant expertise in audit and finance, as well as providing a mandatory training program for new directors on governance, audit process, and legal compliance. Also, they should carry out an annual assessment of the independence and performance of the audit committee directors. And then the last best practice for audit committee, which is number 26, within the firm, it appears that none of the oversight bodies have a member with the financial literacy required to understand and manage the financial reporting process effectively. And then for recommendation, we recommend they should establish an efficient and independent audit committee by ensuring that all members are financially literate and able to understand complex financial statement and financial reporting process to form an audit committee that has the necessary skills and independence. Next is risk management and internal control framework. For the best practice number 27, they have no evidence that the board established effective risk management or internal control mechanism. This is because of lack of oversight and proper control contributed to the firm's ability to sustain a massive Ponzi scheme for an extended period. Recommendation, Burney Meadow firm should establishing a robust risk management framework, such as developing and implementing risk mitigation plans to address identify risks, to develop a comprehensive risk management framework to effectively identify, assess, and manage risks. For the best practice number 28, there no assessment or disclosure of the adequacy and effectiveness of the risk management and internal control framework in this firm, while the board of directors does not provide recommendation to improve the risk management and internal control system. For recommendation, they should develop a comprehensive risk management and internal control framework to develop a comprehensive risk management and internal control framework based on recognized standards such as COSO to establish a robust framework to manage risk and maintain internal control. For the best practice number 29, they did not have a risk management committee to oversee risk management practice. The recommendation, they should establish a risk management committee in the board of directors to establish a risk management committee in order to provide specific oversight of the company's risk management framework and policies. Best practice number 13, the lack of a robust and independent internal audit function was one of the critical failures in Bernie Madoff firm. The recommendation, they must to implement policies that mandate the internal audit team is independent of management and free from any conflict of interest. The last best practice for risk management and internal control framework, which is number 31, we have found the internal audit independent has no indication that Madoff firm ensure the internal audit staff were free from relationship or conflict of interest that could affect their objectivity and independence. For resources in the internal audit department, there is no information on the number of resources in the internal audit department. It's not disclosure or transparent. For the qualification of person responsible for internal audit, there is no public disclosure of the qualification of individual responsible for internal audit. Given the scale of the fraud, there is unlikely to be a stable, qualified and independent internal auditor. While for internal audit framework, it is doubtful that Madoff firm follow a recognized framework for conducting internal audits. The firm's operation lack the robust internal control structure that such framework typically require. For the recommendation for internal audit staff must be independent and free from any relationship or conflict of interest that could impair their objectivity. So they should do a regular review of disclosure regarding potential conflict should be mandatory. For internal audit department, there should be adequately resources with a sufficient number of qualified personnel. This information should be disclosed or to stakeholders to ensure transparency. For the person responsible for internal audit should have appropriate qualification and experience. Their credentials should be disclosed to demonstrate the firm's commitment to strong internal control. And for audit function, they should be carried out according to recognized framework such as those provided by the Institute of Internal Auditors, which is IIA. And this is to ensure a standardized approach to internal audits and adherence to best practice. And I will present my second part, which is integrity in corporate reporting and meaningful relationship with stakeholders. For the first thing that I was to highlight in this second part, which is communication with stakeholders. For the best practice number 32, the Bernie Madoff firm does not ensure continuous and transparent communication with stakeholders regarding any material changes or risks they may be encountered. The stakeholders do not have the necessary information to make informed decisions. For the recommendation, they should provide easily accessible communication channels for stakeholders, such as efficient customer service, informative company websites, and comprehensive annual reports. The best practice number 33, the Bernie Madoff firm are not notorious for their lack of maintained integrity in their financial reporting. Financial reports provided to stakeholders are inaccurate and contain false information. Additionally, there is a lack of effective external oversight as financial reports are not properly audited by independent audit firms. This causes fraud to go undetected for a long time. For the recommendation, they must using a framework from the International Integrating Reporting Council, which is IIRC, that provide complete guidance for integrated reporting as well as incorporating the Global Reporting Initiative, which is GIR, standards for transparent sustainability reporting. And the last part for corporate governance checklist, which is conduct of general meeting. For the best practice number 34, Bernie Madoff firm did not practice transparent and effective corporate governance practice, including the implementation of an authentic and structured AGM. In an effort to cover up the fraud they accused, it is most likely that the company did not issue the AGM notice with the correct information and within the stipulated time frame, if such a notice was issued at all. For the recommendation, they must ensure that they understand and comply with all rules and law relating to annual general meeting notification and provide clear internal corporate governance guidance on annual general meeting implementation, including notification procedures. Best practice number 35. The culture of accountability and transparency in the Bernie Madam's firm was lacking. The failure of governing means that directors are not accountable and meaningful discussion with shareholders do not take place. For the recommendation, they must to ensure that all directors, including key committee chairperson, attend general meetings and provide comprehensive answer to shareholder question. And the last best practice in the corporate governance checklist, which is number 36, in Bernie Madoff's firm did not take advantage of technology to facilitate shareholder participation, such as remote voting and virtual meetings, a feature of poor governance in modern listed companies. This is because the governance structure is not transparent and the firm does not prioritize communication or shareholder engagement through advanced technology. Recommendation, we have two, which is adopting advanced voting technology and by implement a system that allows shareholders to vote remotely or in absentia, ensure that all shareholders can participate in important decisions regardless of their location. And the last one is facilitate virtual general meetings by use a visual meeting platform to enable shareholders to attend and participate in general meeting from remote location. This is to ensure inclusiveness increases engagement. That's all for my part, and I will pass the next part to Nafaiza. Thank you.
Hi, back to me again. Now we have come to the last part of this presentation, which is the conclusion. So to summarize, a comprehensive approach that incorporates regulatory reforms, improve corporate governance, technological innovation, and a dedication ethical practices is necessary to prevent recurrence of corporate scandals and financial crisis. By putting all these steps into places, we can create financial system that is more reliable and resilient, protecting stakeholder interests and promoting long-term economic stability. So that's all from us, Group 1. Thank you for watching and have a good day.